After pulling into Platform 1, the two locos will now make their way to the front of the train. The Vale sign is to one of the Rail Transport Museum's dedicated volunteers and members. "3265 was built in 1902 by Bear Peacock and Company in Manchester, England. When it arrived in Australia, it became numbered P584, when the 32 class were known as the P class. When it was 1924, the New South Wales Government Railway had a renumbering scheme, and P584 is now known as 3265. The 32 class loco was withdrawn in 1968. "3265 received a massive overhaul which commenced in 1998. It took the hard-working and dedicated volunteers to restore the locomotive when the locomotive came back on September 20th, 2009 by the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney. When not in service, 3265 was formerly stored at the Everleigh Railway Workshops, which is also the workshops for the 3801 Limited. Now, the 32 class locomotive is now stored out at Thelmere, along with the other Rail Transport Museum locomotives. The Rail Transport Museum's 3642 was originally ready for this express train to Newcastle, but unfortunately, due to a tyre repair at the Rail Transport Museum, the 36 class locomotive is out of service for the 2011 steam season. With passengers respectively on board, the two original locomotives of the Newcastle Flyer from their respective classes are seen departing Sydney Central Station, heading their way to Newcastle. While the two steam locomotives depart Central Station, a City Rail Waratah set is seen coming on from the airport line. It's Saturday, September 25th, 2011, and we await at Loftus to see the Rail Transport Museum's 3526 heading its way to Wollongong on a fully booked out train. While we await the steam locomotive to arrive at Scarborough to drop off its passengers, we take a look at the fabulous coastline of the South Coast. Scarborough Station is 63.53 kilometres to Central Station. An outer suburban train from City Rail is seen making its way back to Central Station. While the electric commuter train passed us, 8116, X51 and 8136 are seen coming through on a Manildra wheat train. After the goods train comes past us, 3526 now makes its way into Scarborough Station. After dropping off passengers, 3526 now pulls out of Scarborough Station, having heading its way to its destination, Wollongong. The 35 class loco is now seen here at Wollongong Station being taken care of by the staff of the Rail Transport Museum. The 35 class locomotive will now get ready for the return journey to Sydney. 3526 was built in March 1917 by the New South Wales Government Railway Everleigh Workshops. It was one of the members of the Double N class, known as by its famous nickname Naughty Nanny. In the early 1930s, 3526 was one of the 3 engines to be painted in Caledonian blue for the Caves Express. The Caves Express was a special passenger service between 1929 to 1942 from Sydney to Mount Victoria. The locomotive was withdrawn in 1967 and was preserved by the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum. It remained in service until 1975 when the loco was travelling to Thelmy after Enfield Loco Yards, the original Rail Transport Museum, was knocked down. The loco returned to steam in 2004. While the loco was still being serviced, a City Rail outer suburban train is making its way out of Wollongong and being heading its way to Kiama. After the train had gone, 3526 now pulls out of the sidings at Wollongong Station and being heading its way back to its carriages to take its booked passengers back to Sydney. But first we have a stop at Ostomy, one of the 35 class loco's stopping points to bring its passengers back to Sydney, and it was also one of the stops on the way. Here, an outer suburban train from City Rail is seen making its way back to Sydney. It is now raining here at Ostomy, and the 35 class loco is now seen pulling into the station. We now conclude the October edition of Rail Around New South Wales with the 35 class making its way into one of the tunnels near Stanwell Park.